Welcome to episode 6 of the Resilience Chronicles, which is gonna be the most raw, unfiltered, and edgy episode yet, honestly. This morning I was called to share a whole different part in depth of my story, and it is not something that I really thought I would ever share publicly. But I think it's so important because I don't know how to tell the reality of these stories without telling all of it. And being here, actually, some experiences I've had this last weekend have really helped. I don't know. There's everything comes together. It just all comes together, and it's important. And I kind of have no idea where to start. I don't even know if I'll even end up posting this one, but in the spirit of the raw, unfiltered, and uncut, I'm just gonna talk. I'm just gonna do it. So this has been the scariest thing I've ever done in my entire life, and I've done some scary things before, but I think probably being older now, having it matter more, it just feels like the stakes are a lot higher. It matters a lot more, and I can't even necessarily vocalize and put into words like why this is so terrifying, but it is. Like, I feel like I've moved my entire life before. I've started over, a few times now, but this one, I don't know, this one is just totally different. And maybe because this is starting over after my third abusive fucking relationship. But yeah, it just is. It just is. The amount of terror and fear I've been experiencing on a daily basis is a lot. It's this feeling in my body that just clenches, and it'll get brought up in these different things in different environments. I mean, all these things I'm doing, they're so intimidating, but I'm doing it anyway. I'm doing it even with these feelings in my body. And I'm coming to record this episode right now because I was just talking to one of my best friends, and I was telling her that today I see the possibility of this whole new timeline. And it's just not solidified yet, but I can see it, it's this thing that's kind of wavering and coming into existence. And I think it's really important to come here and share this stuff now, before that becomes solid and before that comes real, before things are good, before the success happens. This whole time that I've been recording these, I've wanted to show up in the raw, in the hard, in the vulnerable. And I haven't recorded an episode for, I think it's been about 10 days now. I've been here for 2 weeks yesterday, and the last one I recorded was, I think, 5 days after I got here. And since then, yeah, there's been so much fucking scary shit. And not bad, like violence or something, just doing things that are so scary, just being here so scary. I mean, I've had a couple moments where I've just been in my bed in tears, just what am I doing? What have I done? This is so fucking scary. But then I get up and I keep going, and I keep doing the thing. So yeah, so this is the part where I don't know how to share this stuff without sharing all of this stuff. So doing a move, of course, is pretty expensive. There's a lot involved. And so I run a coaching business, and I love my business. I used to own a gym, a fitness center in Madison, Wisconsin for 6 years, and that was great, but I got so burned out because it was even though I had a team of 15 employees, it was still really all my responsibility, and I never really got to a point where I was able to share that with a team in a way that took some of it off my shoulders. So it got to the point where it's I was either going to close that business or end up in the hospital, so I closed that business. I had no idea what I was going to do. I thought I didn't even want to work in the health and fitness industry at all. I was so burnt out on all of it. Now I understand a lot why, but that's a story for another time. So I kind of took a year off while I was figuring out what I wanted to do, but helping people is my soul's work. It's in health and wellness. It's in my blood. It's in my heart and soul. It's what I'm supposed to be doing. So I came back around to that, and I think it's sometime in 2020, I started an Instagram account to share about some of my like experiences in, you know, with health and healing, not for an intention, not to start a business, but just to share some of the most important things that had helped me. And it kind of took off right away. I mean, I think partly because it was like, you know, the beginning of COVID when everybody was home all the time and, you know, on their devices, but it was easy and it was quick, and with it I would take 5 hours to make a post in Canva, and it was fun. You know, it was fun for me. I had the time and I was able to do that at that point. And then I got to the point where I felt like I was ready to start taking clients again, and almost as soon as I like intentionally made that decision, they started coming. And so the first, you know, starting my coaching business online was like actually quite easy. I did pretty well in my first year, and it just kept going. I had a bunch of crazy shit happen when I left Florida for Wisconsin, left Wisconsin for Florida in the first place. That was in 2022, and I'll tell that story another time. But yeah, I mean, fuck, that's just a whole nother story I'll have to tell another time. Anyway, long story short, I had my online coaching business. It was going well. But moving to Florida and starting over and having not sharing expenses anymore and having everything on my own, I needed some extra money. And I was a stripper for many years when I was younger in Portland, Oregon. I started when I was 19, and I danced almost full time for about 6 years. And man, like that was a great fucking time. Like people talk about stripping and dancing like it's some sort of thing for a last resort for single moms or something, but it's also very empowering and amazing. It can be an amazing experience, and it was for me. I gained a lot of self-confidence from that. I had a lot of really amazing experiences, and it can be a dark world. I mean, there's also drugs and drinking and all sorts of different things too, but there's a lot more to that world than the, you know, people in normal society think that there is, right? But anyway, I was like a big skateboarder back then, and dancing funded my ability to go on skate trips all the time, and you know, it was a great time in my life. But I quit dancing when I was about 25, and I moved to Wisconsin and started my gym and my business and everything. But anyway, long story short, fast forward a little bit. When I moved to Florida, I hadn't danced for 12 years at that point because I'd been doing other stuff. And I was like, let's go see what this is like. Like, it sounds kind of fun. I need some extra money, so let me go check out the scene in Florida. And I immediately went and made $1,100 my first night. I had so much fun. It was great. It was like the good old days, but better. So I would dance on and off when I was first in Florida, and yeah, it was great. So when I met my partner, the one who I was with in Florida, my acro partner, and a guy that I dated on and off and then on for quite a while. It's really interesting because I've come to realize like how much threads of emotional abuse were present in that relationship, and it was very hard for me to see because I had been in 2 abusive relationships when I was in Wisconsin. One of them was extremely emotional abusive, and the other one was emotionally and physically abusive. And it's so crazy to be in something like that because you justify the shit out of it. And again, that's like a story for another time. But when I finally left that second one, when I moved to Florida, I really thought that I was done with that kind of stuff. I was really on a mission to heal, to do my work, to go through that fire, because God, it is a hard thing to do and it is very painful. But I was doing it. And I went through that fire and I felt very liberated and very free, and I really thought that I would never get into another abusive relationship ever again. I didn't want to be in a relationship for a while. Even when I met this next person, like I wouldn't date them right away, and like they exhibited some behaviors that I just wasn't interested in. So I like just didn't date them for a while. But okay, so hopefully this timeline, like I'm not jumping around too much, but it all builds on itself. So okay, let me just like kind of finish. So in that relationship, once we did finally start dating, and then of course it's very convoluted because I had this massive brain injury 10 days after we started dating. So I really, truly, to be fair to myself, do not think I would have stayed in that relationship for so long without the massive brain injury that I had. And the fact that like, it really fucks up your brain. But I didn't realize this man was another narcissist. I didn't realize the fucking issues that he had and how that they would affect me. And I was in that relationship for a little over 2 years, and it did a fucking number on me because this guy was a covert narcissist, and I didn't know that they came in this flavor. I didn't know that they could be a victim and a puppy dog and so sweet, and it just was so, it wasn't what I'd encountered before. It wasn't so obvious. And it took me a long time to realize what was really going on. Although I do want to say that people will tell you. They'll tell you a lot more than you realize in the beginning, but God, it's so hard to listen. And I've gotten this advice before, you know, like listen to what people tell you, right? And I'd say, you know, when me and this guy initially started, you know, being interested in each other, we had decided to take it slow, you know, to get to know each other, which felt like a really good thing, you know, in the beginning. And we were laying in bed just talking, you know, probably the first time we'd ever done this. And I was like, what's something you really don't want me to know about you? Thought it was a great question, right? And he said, well, I've struggled with porn addiction in the past, but I've been clean for as long as I've been clean for right now. And I didn't really know what to do with that because I didn't know much about porn addiction I'd read some research about what it does to people's brains, but it's not something that I had really encountered in real life to see what that's actually like for somebody. And then plus he told me he'd been clean, you know, for as long as he had, but I didn't ask if that meant 2 days or 2 weeks or 2 years. So I see that as a big mistake now. Because if I would have asked him, the truth probably would have been a couple days, maybe a couple weeks. So I was like, oh, well, maybe that's like, it's kind of cool that he shared this vulnerable thing with me, right? So maybe that's like not a problem. Little did I know. He asked me that same question back, and I told him, well, I dance sometimes. And he's like, oh, well, that's not a problem. You know, I don't, that's okay. You know, probably won't be, it's not a problem unless we get serious. But of course, I didn't listen to the unless we get serious part. Because lo and behold, these two things would become very big issues later on. Now, I will talk about the whole porn addiction thing another time because I think that it is an epidemic that people don't truly understand, not just how it affects the men, but how it affects the women with those men. It's so sad and so painful and so destroying of real intimacy between humans, and not just sexual intimacy, but just intimacy, period. So why I'm telling you guys this is because another part of this is that so we started dating. I had my brain injury. My brain injury made it very hard for me to do anything in my coaching business besides actually coach my clients. So when you run a small business as an online entrepreneur, you know, you're not just doing the thing that you're selling, you're doing the selling and the marketing and the administrative and everything else. And so my brain injury, like, was, again, something I'll talk about more extensively another time, but it is a very long-term recovery process. And one of the worst things about a brain injury is the worst part of it isn't when it actually happens, because it's for like 6 months after the injury, your brain continues to get worse before you hit the worst part and it starts to get better. So like any normal injury, like when you actually get injured, that's the worst part. But with a brain injury, it actually gets worse for a while before it gets better. And it almost feels uncontrollable, like there's nothing you can do about it, and it's very difficult to be in the brain that is injured. There's like, it's like you're seeing like through a fog and multiple layers of fogs and clouds, and you can like almost understand that you're in a cloud, but like also can't, and there's just fucking nothing you can do about it. Anyway, I will talk about that way more another time. But long story short, this impacted my finances hugely. I also had a lot of really other fucked up shit happen during that point in time. Like my roommates both left. I was left to pay the bills all on my own. Had a bunch of sketchy roommates. Had to evict one of them. One of like my last abusive ex tried to have me criminally prosecuted for stealing my own dog. Cost $5,000 to hire a criminal defense attorney. Like, damn, like there was some fucking crazy, gnarly, horrible shit that was happening. And yeah, so financially, I was not in a very good position. My business was not bringing in the kind of money that it used to. And so I needed to go work to do something else. And it would have been really nice if I was able to go dance, but I was dating a covert narcissist with porn addiction and intimacy issues that had a problem with me dancing, but also didn't want to help me in any other way. So because I thought that, I did, like, I knew enough to ask, like, hey, like, why is this so triggering for you? Like, can we at least talk about it, right? Because I think, like, everybody, like, is into different stuff, which is fine, right? But, like, at least, like, if you're triggered about something and you might not want your partner doing something, at least be willing to discuss why that is. And I have infinite room to give people space for healing or understanding themselves, but he couldn't give me any, like, he wasn't willing to examine what was going on there, which makes sense now, but at the time, whatever. Anyway, so instead of going and dancing, which could have really helped me at that time, I went and got a job at a bar. And the thing about working at the bar, like bartending, is like in summer in Florida where there's no air conditioning, is, oh my God, it was so hard on me. It was so fucking hard, especially in my brain injured state, like physical labor, like, and all the things I was doing. And the thing, like, you're just fucking sweating and you're covered in grease and mop water. And it's just, I know, it's boo-hoo and everything, right? But it is like a good night at the bar is the worst night at the strip club. And it was, but I did it for months until I finally reached a breaking point where my body could not handle it anymore. And so this is one of the times that I did actually break up with this guy, because I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like, it's too hard on me. It's too much when I could just go to the club and help myself. So I did that, and we broke up because that was his boundary. Anyway, and then of course, like, whatever, he kept dragging me back into this thing over and over and over again. But again, that's the story for another time. But I guess, like, what I'm trying to share here is, like, being oppressed or suppressed. Like, this guy withheld intimacy, told me things like I was too old, he was attracted to younger women, there's all the, things that are wrong with me and my body and my appearance, while jacking off to a bunch of, fake sex, fucking porn stuff, which just further affects the brain. And I was not allowed to support myself through expressing my sensuality on a stage like I had been doing, since I was 19 years old. And the thing, like dancing is an art form. There's different dancers do it different ways. It's, it's all there. But for me, dancing is an art form, and it is an expression of a certain aspect of my divine being and energy. It's an energy exchange. And to me, it can be very pure, and it's a very beautiful, pure art form, which is something I could talk about more another time too. But because of this man's issues and toxicity, it wasn't okay for me to do my art, but it's, okay for him to be like, what about the porn stars? Like, it's okay for these people's daughters and wives and mothers to be porn stars, and him using that for, feeding whatever he was feeding by using that. But it's not okay for me to support myself through expressing my art form. So this is something I'm still, working through. But then also, just like, there's just so much the shame or taboo that people put on dancers and put on this art form. And so it's not been something that I thought that I would ever, like, especially like and even with my coaching business, right? It's like, there's certain things you don't talk about. There's certain things you don't share. And just fuck that. I'm so over that. I'm so over being fractionated and not all of me. So I started dancing again, especially to do this trip and to do this move. Like, that's the only way that I got here. Because even, like, I don't remember the car saga and everything. I mean, I had to put $2,700 into that car after I bought it. And drive across the country with a U-Haul and move to a new crazy city and all of these things. So obviously very expensive. And I really was trying to do it without putting anything on my credit cards, without going into debt. That didn't actually happen, but, I did the best I could. So I was working a lot in St. Pete as a dancer before I left. And that was actually very healing after leaving that relationship, to be able to go and express my energy and have people adore it and love it and pay me for it. There's just so many wonderful things about dancing, which maybe I'll talk about more another time. And there's also a dark side, and you have to have very strong boundaries as a human to be able to do that, to do it, to do it in a way that feeds your soul and doesn't degrade it. Yeah, and so like this has been one of the many scary things, right, about coming to Vegas, because we all know, I mean, Vegas is supposed to have some of the best strip clubs in the world, right? It's fucking Vegas. Like, it's a whole different thing. I mean, I could go to work at the club in St. Pete with fucking no makeup on after acro and still make plenty of money. But in Vegas, like, you gotta try a lot fucking harder, or at least that was my experience, when I first got here. Like, I came in and it's like, I gotta find work right away, it's like, it's fucking it's a survival world out here right now, man. And like, I'm right there in it with so many people. But so it was like, going through everything I went through, driving across the country, like getting here was like, I had already been, how do I even say it? I mean, shit. I will say this, it was never as bad as when I was under the shadow of that demon and my life force was being drained when I was with that man in St. Pete. I mean, every moment since leaving, even the terrifying ones, have been better than that level of being just absolutely eaten alive and drained in the way I was. But I'm not gonna act like it hasn't been fucking hard. But at least I have my generator, my life force, so I'm able to like have this energy that just replenishes itself over and over and over again. Thank fucking God. So getting here, like, I would have loved to just be able to rest for a minute and like get my bearings and get grounded and catch my breath and everything, but I didn't perceive that I had the time to be able to do that. So I guess on my last episode, I told you guys the story about my sheriff's card, because that's something you have to have as a dancer in Vegas. And to work at a bunch of different jobs too, like in any casino or whatever. But yeah, so then I could go and get a job. I went to this place called the Peppermint Hippo, which is like one of the bigger clubs in Vegas, which is a knockoff of the Spearmint Rhino. I just thought the name was fucking hilarious. So I went there during the day, so they hired me for a day shift, and it's like, you have to come back to audition at night if you want a night shift, and generally you're gonna make a lot more money at night than during the day. But it's like, shit, I just need to like go to work. So like I tried a day shift there, and I mean, I made a couple $100s in a couple hours like the first day I was there, which was like all right, but then the second day was just completely fucking dead and horrendous, and I just had a terrible experience with another dancer, and it was just like, it was not great. And I was like, fuck, I need to come back to audition for nights. So I went, like a couple days later, I went and auditioned at night, and then they're like, oh, you can come back at 3 a.m. You can check in after 3 a.m. Or before 5 p.m. And it's like, so basically I'm not allowed to work nights there. And I was just like, what? I am not used to the experience of being denied. But this is fucking Vegas, and I don't have big fake tits and all that stuff. But here's the other thing is, like, they won't tell you. Like, is it my face? Is it my boobs? Like, what is it? What is it? Why I can't work here? And I guess sometimes it's just none of that. Because also I was sitting in the dressing room, and like, there's older girls and heavier girls and like all sorts of different girls, as there should be. So I really, truly did not understand. And I left that club in absolute fucking mortal terror of not being able to get a job at night anywhere in Vegas. Because if I can't get a job at night dancing right now, I can't be here. I can't stay. And I was so fucking scared. I was so scared because it, like, my brain was just like, no, like, this is just, it's crazy to think about it, now. But when you're in those moments of that fucking fear and your brain is just telling you all these fucking stories, man. But it's like, what was I gonna do? Like, go back to my place with my tail between my legs? Like, no. So I drove to the next club, and they only did auditions during the day. So I called the next place, and they're like, oh, you can come between 10 and 12. And it was like 11:30. And I was like, okay, so I'm gonna drive out there. And then I drove out there, and they've got, all these pictures of these fucking, Barbies on the outside. And like, oh my God, how is this gonna go? But I walked in there, and it was a woman manager, and like, they actually did a full 2-song audition, which these other places have just been like, spin around in a circle for 30 seconds and show us your tits, and then we're gonna judge you whether you're good enough for this or not. It's just like absolutely no part about how you dance or anything like that. But it's Vegas. So this place was a lot more my style. It was a lot more of like a rock and roll style club. They did a full audition and I got hired there, no problem. But even then, as I was like sitting there, like waiting for her to do my paperwork and shit, I'm just like, my brain is just like, when's the bad news coming? Are they going to tell me I can only work certain shifts? Or like, what's the deal? And like, it wasn't like that at all. That place has actually been pretty cool. But dude, just the levels of fucking terror in these different like experiences that I've been having. Okay, so then I get hired at this place, and I worked this weekend, and I did. I had one mediocre night, and then a night that was like pretty decent, and I started to see some good possibilities that I will be able to stay here, and that things will be okay. Well, yeah, where was I gonna go next? Oh, but then also it's like, so part of the reason I'm started like that I feel able to share this right now too, is that, so then on Saturday I got invited to like a girl's birthday, like girls circle time, okay? And I knew I was gonna have to leave to go to work that night as a dancer, and I was a little bit nervous, like should I even go, because I'm gonna have to make my exit, and like I don't lie. So if they ask me a question directly to my face, I'm gonna have to tell them that I'm on my way to go to work and what I do. And I was just like, I don't wanna have to tell them because they might judge me and blah, 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 blah. And I was worried about it, but I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna go, anyway, and like hope for the best. Within like maybe 10 minutes of being there, one of the other girls mentioned that she was a dancer, and I was like, oh my God, thank you so much for saying that, because I am too, and I was really worried that you guys were gonna judge me. And they're like, girl, this is Vegas, like a lot, like so many people do that, like so many people are entertainers, and it's just not a problem. And it was just so refreshing and so healing and so helpful. And then since then I've decided, like, I've wanted to have no more shame about this for a long time, but I'm just fucking gonna step into that fucking completely, because fuck this shame shit, and shame dies when we shine a light on it. And this is a part of my personality. It is part of me. It's something I've done for a long time, and it's something that I love. I love the pure art form of erotic dance, and there's nothing fucking wrong with it. And I think just so many people don't understand it. But anyway, that's maybe stories for another time. Yeah, so things are shifting. Much better experiences are happening. And I'm starting to see this new timeline. And yeah, I wanted to get on here, like right now. It's like, I guess, I'm not in the pits of despair like I was last week, but I'm also not all the way out of, like, I'm not all the way to the bright, glorious future yet either. But like, I can see it. Like, I can see it. And so while I would have loved to record this video from the pit of despair, even I was not able to do that quite yet. But I wanted to record it. The second best time is now, from this place that I'm at. Because, yeah, like I can feel, it's like spiritually, I mean, I've got trust issues in all the levels at this point, right? But it's like we gotta work through it, right? It's our responsibility to work through it. And so while I kind of like, I can really see this like future, it's real, like, I also like, it's like, can't trust it until it's real. But like, that's also not like super useful or helpful. So I'm like, I'm in this in-between space of even though I still feel a bit of that fear and a bit of that clenching, I can also see the what I'm realizing are the very real possibilities that also exist. And I'm in this in-between space of allowing for those possibilities, not being held back by my fear, and stepping into the trust of creating these possibilities like in real time. So more to this story to come, but I need to go get ready for tonight. More episodes will come, more stories will come, but that's where I'm gonna leave it for now. And we'll see if I post this episode number 6, but I needed to get that out. All right, thank you guys for being witnessing my journey and being part of it. Lots of love.